are they, how many mentees do they have?
They suggest a 10-to-1 ratio.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so, like I said, about 60, and they say to have more than that for different reasons of, the standards that are there for those link leaders. If they are not meeting those standards, then they can be removed from that position. So they say to start out with a greater number than that. I think we're talking about a different kid though, too, and I know I haven't been immersed in it yet, but I think we're looking at the leaders aren't, we have a great leadership with our student government, with our NHS kids, our Key Club kids, but I think it's going to give another layer of opportunity for a lot of different kids, because they're going to see it as, I can just sit and talk to kids that are younger than me. I have the confidence to do that, so I think that's going to help as well.
Yeah, that was kind of my question. You obviously, you have always in the school leaders, like you're saying, that kind of are involved in groups already. So, hopefully this would give more of the population that opportunity. Maybe the kids that are a little more reluctant to step into those roles, but, that you would see them, really step into this and grow themselves with it, that it's not just that small population that's already doing a lot, open it up to other kids as well.
And I think that's the goal. In speaking with Matt Haynes, and he was a great resource because they shared with us everything that they did wrong or would have done differently.
Yeah.
And so we tweaked our, not just the presentation, but what we'd like to do moving forward according to the things that they learned along the way. And one of the struggles he did mention that they had initially was getting so many students involved, and sort of spreading out from those the student government, the NHS, those groups. So these guys will learn a lot when they go to the training, we just have, we're in the infancy stages. So I know they're excited to go to the training. We weren't allowed to go to California. We tried that one.
Yeah.
Just to jump on a little bit, I brought Link Crew to my high school right before I left. So I didn't get to see it completely through to fruition. I saw the summer months, and then right around September is when I left for administrative position. So, but we sent 2 people, and kudos to you for working through some things with Satterton, because that is the best advice, is definitely have more than 2 people trained. I had 2 assistant principals attempting to run this and get it off the ground, and that's all they did through the entire summer and late spring, so I did everything else. And so, Gina, thank goodness you're sending more than that, because you have a very busy summer otherwise if you didn't have more than 2 people that are being trained. But just, same thing for me, what the video showed, the traditional freshman orientation program, you bring them in August, you give them your handbook, you have them go find their classes, but most schools you're done after that, and you've called that a transition. Well, they're not transitioned at all after that one day in your high school. And so this is a program that runs throughout the entire school year, where they're making bonds and a lot of times making, hopefully lifelong friends. And so it really started out, we were worried that we weren't getting enough students that we thought were qualified, that were applying to be these mentors for students. And then it ended up that it became such a prestigious opportunity for a student that we had more people that we could accept, and we ended up having to turn people away as the program got off the ground. So you're going to find really good people who build great bridges with students, and sometimes it's the students you expect, other times it's not, that step forward. So you're going to have students from across the board that want to step up and be good mentors. We did not have to remove, I keep in touch now with them, see how the program's going, my assistant principals, and they really don't have to remove many students from being Link Crew leaders. Those that they pick, they know the students pretty well by the time they're juniors and seniors, and so you have good people in those positions. So thank you for pursuing this, because I do think it's something that is great for for the environment of the high school.
I have some questions. So when would they, well, I guess a couple of things. So the administrators and teachers would go in the spring, and then and you said you would pick the students before the end of the year, then do they have an orientation over the summer?
From what I've read about the 3-day training, is that they're going to teach us how to do all those things during the training, and then yes, we would then bring them in and have a separate crew meeting and a crew orientation. Yes.
And then I'm wondering when they would meet, because at Souderton, there's a fifth block that's about 35-minute time frame, 2 times a week, and the way the link crew meets with the students, and they don't have multi-grade homers, or I mean, we just call it fifth block, but they're separated by grade level, because a lot of times there are things that you have to do throughout the year by grade level, but there'll be link crew days, and they'll announce it's a link crew day, and then all the link crew kids go into the freshman fifth block classes, and I'm not sure how often they go, maybe once a month, I guess, something like that, and then they all wear their t-shirts, and, you know, they're doing their thing. So I'm just wondering, we don't really have a homeroom that meets that often, so I'm wondering how would that work?
We currently have an activity period, so we can fit that in as between first and second period. Sometimes in the first marking period, we have them every 10 days at the least amount, because of all the clubs getting organized. That's when we have our club meetings. Our yearbook staff takes pictures during that time. So we would just incorporate a specific amount of activity schedule days that would be link crew days.
So they would just be scheduled throughout the year?
Yeah.
Okay. And you would be the administrator every year? I mean, even beyond when you have the freshmen? That's my question.
That's a great question. I don't know if we've gotten to that point yet, but when the 5 of us sat down and talked about it, it was literally, we were kind of like bantering back and forth, who wants to do this, and we all wanted to do it. We all wanted to, we would love to cancel school those 3 days and send the whole administrative team, but we may find some other people, find other administrators, and we don't have to send 4 every year, but maybe for the next couple of years we send, say, 2, the administrator and an advisor, so that they have a core knowledge, and obviously I would still be there to support them. That was the thing that Matt Haynes had says, that he's the link crew guy. And I don't think they have a house system like we do in its entirety. So I think that's something that we're going to have to adjust to and figure out as we move forward.
That was my other question about the training. So you would send a few people every year, and then maybe...
Yeah, I think it would get off the ground maybe 2 years, maybe a 3rd cycle, and then we would all be ready to go.
And that was one thing that Matt said, that initially they sent just 2 people, and what they found and I forget who he said the 2 folks were, but when the 2 folks came back, they realized they needed to send more for additional folks, so then the next year they sent a couple people. He strongly recommended 4, and then we talked about years thereafter, we would send 1 or 2.
And so the company provides the curriculum for the whole year?
Yeah, that's part of the training, is you get the curriculum binder. You get the curriculum binder at the training.
And then I guess this is my last question, but you mentioned that the Boomerang Project runs it, and that they were big on student recognition, and that's something I know I had talked to Ms. DeBona about before. At Souderton, one thing that they do is they have a student of the month every month, and they have a freshman male and female. Well, they have a male and female from every grade, and then they get to invite a teacher. They have a breakfast, and they get to invite a teacher and their parents, and it's a great recognition for the student, and it also creates a bond between, they get to invite the teacher, and it creates this other bond. And then they also have spotlight winners. Each month is a different a different subject, because it's academic, and then also, the special subjects, or the encore, whatever you want to call them. So each month, and then they have student spotlight winners, and then they just get put up, recognized, and so it's great. I think they have a lot of student recognition, which I think, especially for freshmen who don't normally you just have seniors, senior gets a student of the month, but if you're having a freshman be a student of the month, that's a real boost for those kids. Or, and every spotlight, they pick a male and female from every grade to be a spotlight winner in that subject area. So again, that's a real boost for the younger kids as well, to say, wow, I'm already being recognized at the school. And they do have, at Souderton, there's I know they have an orientation day, and they make it really fun, and all the freshmen come, and then they have a dance that night. And hundreds of freshmen come. So, and they have this big dance, which is a great way, before school even starts.
it's a lot of pressure on Mr. Simpkins because your link crew, Mike Mann, was on Kelly Grippo.
Right, yeah.
So a lot of pressure on him, but
Well, yeah, it's Rich Curtis, but there's another actually, one of the counselors, I think, DJs as well,
Oh, okay.
also. So they have there are a couple DJs at Southern, so,
stereotype Mike Mann.
yeah. Yeah, so it's a great program, I think, and really, and it's great for the freshmen, and it's great for the juniors and seniors who get to do it. And I know at Souderton, teachers recommend people, but students, if they're not recommended, they can also apply. And then there's a selection process, so,
Which they teach
yeah.
So how much basically per year? You know, you're gonna send a couple of people to be trained, and then these different events that you would have throughout the year. Do you think you'd be spending?
He did say, Matt Haynes did say it was a yearly cost of about $3,000 plus, just for the different events and things like that, but he's, and kind of recalling the conversation that we had with him, it's sort of recouped in different ways through fundraisers, and I don't know if Mrs. Yarvin, you can add to that, I'm not sure, but he did say that there isn't just simply the yearly cost to upkeep, which, you know what? We've heard nothing but positives about this program. We reached out to other schools besides Souderton that has this program. We've heard absolutely nothing but positive things, and if it's something that's going to support the kids and bring them together and provide them with that support that we don't have right now, then I'll budget for it and find a place to take it from.
So here's another question, does it need to become an EDR position? Is it like a?
We did ask that question, and they have, they didn't start out, I don't believe, the first year, but they have developed an EDR
Yeah.
position that's split 2 or 3 ways.
Okay, right, so that would be something we would need to do. So do we need to vote on anything?
No, I think this was really because Gina's going to take care of budgeting for it. We also have some Title II funds as far as the training. This was really an informational item tonight, so you know what the high school is intending to pursue, and they'll keep you posted on how this develops.
I think it sounds great, thank you so much.
Do you know the,
Yeah, no, yes, please.
do you know the enrollment for the freshman class coming in, the population by chance?
I haven't looked at it, but I would assume, I would assume it's close to 600 like it has been. You know, I have 605 that are exiting this year, so I know that the sophomore class is also around 600, and it's a little bit less than that, but.
And all the mentors are upperclassmen interns, so then basically the freshman class, they're going to get the full-fledged LinkedIn kind of thing, and then that will develop over the years in terms of them going up the ranks and then becoming mentors themselves. Then I guess my question would be, there's 4 men as coordinators. Do you think maybe out of 605, we have 1 or 2 females in the student body? That maybe a woman?
That
Right
came
now?
up, it came down to sharing rooms, and I had not solidified, when I created this, I had not solidified a second class advisor, because typically we don't start to process that out until spring of the year. And I was able to solidify a female class advisor this year, for 2021, about a week and a half ago. So, but she's a first-year teacher. So there's some, I don't necessarily know if taking a first-year teacher out of the classroom for 3 days, and she's a Keystone content teacher. I didn't know if taking her out 3 days in April, less than a month from the Keystone biology test, would probably, I didn't think that would be a very good idea. So we felt that this year, because we have 1 male advisor, the Mike person was going to be is a male, that we would just go with the 4 males, so we can just split the cost of 2 rooms instead of 3 or 4. So.
The cost of the room doesn't seem like a good
I know,
reason to
but
say
but
why
the-
you're only going to have 4 men and not any
The
women.
other thing is that
She's a first-year teacher.
Well, what
that
about the
teaches-
guidance counselor? You could, I mean,
My other guidance counselor is in charge of AP testing, and does all the coordination of AP testing, and that's.
Oh, you're
when
saying because you wanted to have the freshman counselor?
So Mr. Henderson and Mrs. Moffett are my class counselors right now. They'll rotate to be freshmen next year. So when we looked at Mrs. Moffett and potentially a female class advisor, which was what I was trying to get to, Mrs. Moffett runs our AP testing program inside the building, and that's a crazy time of year for her.
But couldn't you consider a junior or senior counselor, since they're going to be in charge of the students, you know, the juniors and seniors who are running the link crew, rather than just the freshmen who are receiving the link crew? I mean, it's something else to consider.
Yeah, I don't think we thought of it that way. We thought of, okay, this is going to be a group that's going to work together for house meetings once a week, that we would continue to talk about at those meetings. So just in our process, we can look at that, but I was looking from the standpoint of we already are working together in some aspects with different things that we do, counselor and I.
Right, but the people who are organizing the link crew, right, are working with the juniors and seniors to send them out. That's what they do a lot.
No, that would still come through me, through the process of collecting all the things, I believe. And again, I don't know all the answers, and I think I'm going to get all those answers when we go on April.
But I think it's a good point. And I think if you're the class of 21 principal and you have the class of 2021 advisor, then maybe, and then you're going to take the class of 2021 guidance counselor, but maybe you would need somebody who's from the older classes, because then they would know the students who are the link crew leaders.
It's a very good point, and we definitely threw out, I mean, I was the one who threw out the female issue, because initially we were looking, initially I wanted to go up, but it did come down to a couple of factors, the four of them running the freshman class, conversations with Matt Hines, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Haynes, on who should be those attending the training. He really gave us, I don't want to say structured folks to attend. I'd be more than happy to send an additional, one or two people, or at least one, but we were looking at the costs too, because it is expensive. I only have so much money budgeted for professional development, and unfortunately Dr. Price is helping us out as well. But it's not solidified, we didn't send up the registration, so we certainly can look at who's attending and who else we could send along, but I think to send a female just because they're a female and not, I don't want to take that first year teacher out of the classroom right before testing. I don't want to take Mary Ann out of the guidance because of the AP testing. So we'll have to take a look at the junior and senior counselors.
Is this the structure then that Satterton used, like what you're saying, you're pretty much basically keeping it for freshmen? Did they advise to do it that way as opposed to, what is being discussed, that, bring in a little bit of the upperclassmen?
He specifically gave us like the nuts and bolts, or the folks who should, the personality, the type of folks who should attend. And we did toss around who would be a good, if different people would be a good mic person. We did just fall into those four people, not for any other reason than those were the four people that fit. But that's not to say that we can't revisit it. We've not sent up the registrations. It's not been paid for. We just wanted to as being transparent with the board and let you guys know what we were looking at in case you hear link through. But we certainly can take a look at it. Maybe Dr. Price has a little extra money that we can.
Well, I just wanted to say too,
upperclassmen.
when you're working with those students, those four will be trained, but they're not the ones that are exclusively working with the activities and things you're doing with. I mean, you're going to have other teachers and counselors involved with the activities of Link Crew. They're just the first group that's going to be trained. And there's multiple trainings per year. This just happens to be the closest one. So we could look at what's the next one after April. I know you know one's in California prior to that and so forth. This is actually the last one for this school year, but you could look and see if they haven't published yet, what's the first one of next school year. And maybe even before school started, you could have another person or two training, and they could come out of next year's budget.
That's kind of what I think the way you went about it sounds like you're thoughtful in how you put it together and the people that you selected. So I wouldn't want you necessarily to go back to the beginning to arrange it so you have a certain kind of people. Do you know what I'm saying? pick the people that have what you think you need to get the job done. And you can always send different individuals at a later date. So, think about it, but I wouldn't get too stressed about it, I would say. If you pick good people, then go with what you think is the best.
Sounds good. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the pool schedule update. Dr. Price, your name is on that.
So we wanted to just provide another informational item to the pool schedule because this was not on the schedule that was presented in the spring. And the change is that there has been a request to look at the possibility of adding in some community swim time, some lap time into the pool schedule. And so Jacob Grant has looked at that and kind of weighed the options, and it's a really tight schedule, which is why there wasn't anything there to begin with. But what he came up with was combining that with the swim lessons that are currently scheduled, where swim lessons would have half the lanes, and then the community's open swim would have the other half of the lanes, and to kind of meet both needs. That also doesn't push back PAC or any of the other activities that are in there later, because they're already in there fairly late, especially on school nights. So we don't want to touch some of those nights. So there's an hour and a half then on Monday and an hour and a half on Saturday where an open swim time would be added in there. The other thing just to make note of is that the swim lessons have not started yet. So right now, that's an empty slot, so there would be time there to do that. There has been a shortage of guards, and Jacob has a couple that are in the pipeline right now, but because of that hasn't started. And the water polo, I believe, is about to start soon, correct? So there were some natural holes there, but even when the lessons start, they'll still have half of the pool, so we can meet both needs. Jacob can meet both needs from the aquatics end. So again, just an informational item, there's been some concern about only having that in the spring, or late winter to spring, and so this was a way to work it in earlier. So this will be from December till about February, and then some more time can be added in the spring as the schedule opens up and allows for a little more flexibility. And Jacob's just here in case there were any questions.
Any questions or comments? I have a question. So when I saw this, and then I had some questions for Dr. Price. So I'm just wondering why we have a problem with the shortage of lifeguards, and really, but more what we can do to address it, because how are we going to address it next year? Because we have a community swim program and we're not running anything. We need to figure out how we can fix it for next year, right?
Jacob, before you go, I'll just jump in with the one piece I do know is, from what I understand, talking to David Babb as well, in preparation for tonight, is I think he feels, and Mr. Bone also feels like you get some good applicants, but the process that they're going through to be hired by a school district is obviously different than a lot of other employers with clearances and so forth. And so they interview, they look like good candidates, and then they take a job at the Giant or somewhere different that hires them on the spot when they want to start a job quicker. And so we lose that candidate, and we're back to the drawing board. Now, beyond that, I don't know if you have any other issues, because we haven't spoke about that specific question, but.
That's a great point. The one that he brought up. The other one is the fact that the lifeguarding class that the high school offers is only not offered until you're a junior or senior. So what we're seeing is a lot of juniors are taking it, and then they apply to work for their senior year. Certainly get them for 1 year. And then I'm back to the drawing board come August. I get the post up in August, as soon as I'm back from my break, and then they apply, and then it takes a month or two for them to get hired. So now I'm only looking at them working for me for 6-7 months. Since I'm not open in the summer, a lot of them are saying, well, I'll find a job at a YMCA where I can work through the summer, places that have indoor and outdoor pools. I did receive another application today. A couple of the water polo boys have expressed interest now that their season is done and working for me. But yeah, it's just been an issue hiring lifeguards this year. Last year, I had no problem. The day I opened the application, I got 10 applications within the week. This year, I opened it and got 3 in the first month.
I wonder, I know this year, and the reason that we're changing for the 10th grade aquatics program is that 2 out of the 3 lifeguarding classes, there wasn't room to run them during this current school year. So I'm wondering if that happened last year, because that's when the swim program, the 10th grade swim program was expanded to be swimming all year long. And it cut into the time for the lifeguarding class. So I wonder if there's fewer kids certified. Because when I asked about the change in the, whatever, it was in the documentation that we had about changing the 10th grade aquatic program and then changing physics, and then it would only be half a year, and then there would be room for more lifeguarding classes. So I wonder if that's why there are fewer people.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about the class-wise. I mean, I do know that there are several of my sophomore water polo player girls who have expressed wanting to teach swim lessons. With them only being 15, they are allowed to work, but they can't work past 7 p.m. So they'd be able to come in, teach one lesson, and then miss out on the second or third set of lessons. And I just feel like that's kind of a waste of their time and my time to hire these 15-year-old kids who want to work. So I mean, if we could somehow find a way to allow sophomores to take a lifeguarding class and I could have it for 2 years, you know, that would be great. I did just hire a student who is going to one of the local Penn State campuses and has, you know, said he wants to work here throughout college. So that might be nice to keep one person on, but if I can get more of that, it's just something I'm working on.
Can you hire them at the end of the school year, so they're ready to go at the beginning and you don't have to wait those couple months?
I did post the application and made announcements in the school towards the end once the lifeguard classes had been certified, and also me working in the pool. I had Tom Wyatt, who teaches the lifeguard class, and Jesse Davey had given me a 10-minute slot for me to come in and just kind of talk with the class and say, hey, this is what I'm looking for next year. If you're interested, grab an application. I did have several kids grab applications, none of which followed up. No, I never received an application from them. So, you know, I am trying to actively recruit from the lifeguarding classes. It's just a bummer because if you go out and take it by the Red Cross, you're paying $350 to get certified, whereas you can take it through the school and it comes out of your, you know, you're only paying an extra like $40 for the certification through the school. So a lot of kids opt to do that. It takes a whole year to get certified rather than a 2-weekend class through the American Red Cross.
So the plan for this year is to start lessons in January?
As soon as I can have enough instructors, that would be the hope. I have 2 that should at least be on the board report for December. The applicant today, I set up an interview for Monday. Hopefully I can try and, she worked at a pool this summer. She has most of her clearances. She's, you know, I've talked with her about all this, hopefully to try and get her in if I feel she's a good fit for the board report in December. That would give me 6 guards, which is more than enough to start a swim lesson program.
Do they have to be certified lifeguards to be swim instructors?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you need somebody on the stand, and then you need the...
Yeah, I run a beginner, intermediate, and advanced swim lesson program. I don't, as of right now, I have 3 staff members, so I don't have enough to have one person on the stand, 3 instructors in the water at the same time. And that would also mean that every single one of them has to work every Monday and every Saturday. With high school kids' schedules, I don't think that's possible, that they would be able to commit to that. So if I can get 4 or 5 lifeguards that can commit, that would be ideal before I start the program.
And the water polo clinic's going to be starting soon?
Probably in January as well. I'm in the process of looking for applicants to help me, because I'll be running the program, but I would like to have several of the high school athletes join in on that program to help teach the younger kids. So I'm in the process of working on that right now, yes.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Anything else? Okay. Thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right, so that is the end of our agenda. Any public comment? Oh, we have one more. Oh, I'm sorry, the calendar. It's there, and I just, okay, so, sorry. Thought we were ending. Yeah, oh, there you go.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. Okay, so our calendar discussion.
So this is preliminary discussion. Typically, it wouldn't come to the Activities Committee until January, after the meeting that we have with Buck Schools and Technical School So that hasn't happened yet. That'll happen in December. But the reason it's being brought up tonight is to get a feel for the number of student days in the school year and what we want to do with that. Because I can't go into that meeting and really until I have that initial question answered. So let me explain what I mean by that. Right now, this year, we have to reduce the number of staff days by 1. And the prior 2 years, teacher days, the staff days is what was cut. This past year, it was one of the 2 trade days. So 2 trade days were put into the new contract. It was immediately reduced to 1 with the reduction in staff days to 194. So for next school year, 17-18, we have to go from 194 to 193 staff days. We can't cut another in-service day because there were only 10 scheduled in the calendar, and by the collective bargaining agreement, it says there has to be 10 minimum. So we know we have to at least start by cutting 1 student day. So the day that I targeted was the last half day, which would be the least amount of instructional impact. So the idea would be that next year in 17-18, and the last student day would be a full day, but it would be 1 day earlier because we'd be cutting that half day. So that would get us down to 183 student days. And then I looked at Palisades and Quakertown and the number of student days that they have, and they have 181 days. So right now, before Techland stays open, those other 2 days for our students. So I'm looking at where those days would fall in our calendar, and if they're going to be end of the year in June days, weighing the option of that value of instruction versus professional development that could maybe be put into the calendar earlier for staff, where students would benefit for just about the entire school year. So what I was suggesting was reducing to 181 days to match our other upper bucket schools, and adding 2 staff days in there as in-service days where students would be off. Also to continue PD, so there's not a big lapse from August when they get their first in-service days until November 8th when they finally get their next in-service day. I'm suggesting putting something in September and something in October. Now again, this is prior to even having a discussion with the other schools, so they may want to put in-service days somewhere else than we would. I feel pretty strongly that the Friday before Labor Day would be a great place to put the in-service day, and that day could be chosen as our trade day. So at the end of this school year, teachers in June could be offered, as they were this past year, to attend an additional in-service day that last week. Whatever the last day, teacher day would be the next day. And if they attend that day, then they would not have to come in on the Friday before Labor Day. It would be the day that they swap, that they trade off. So I think we would get good attendance, and it would be a pretty good morale booster too that weekend. And also that students wouldn't be here 5 days that first week back to school, they'd only be here 4. So I guess tonight I'm not looking to go through month by month, day by day to see where things fall, because I need to do that first with the other schools. But I wanted to get a feel and a little bit of discussion as to see if there's support to reduce the number of student days. We know we have to go to 183 because we have to cut a day based on contract, but then to go from 183 to 181 and add some professional development time back. So students would get out a day earlier, essentially, because we cut that last half day. They wouldn't get out 3 days earlier because we were putting in-service time back in. The way it falls next year, they would get out, assuming there's no extra snow days beyond what we build in, they would get out around Friday, June 8th. Senior graduation, Gina, Ms. DeMona probably would target the 7th, I'm assuming, if she can get the venue, since they don't prefer Fridays. So probably somewhere around June 7th, and would be senior graduation thereabouts. The other thing to consider, and I'll just throw it out there as one last piece, we don't truly build in a snow day. We have snow makeup days, but we don't really have a built-in day. Day 181 could be a built-in day. So for instance, currently, Quakertown, when they have their first snow day, they don't make it up. They'll have students come 180 days, but not the 181st day. So if we went that route, students wouldn't make up day 181, they would make up the next snow day, which would be snow day number 2, and that's when we would go to the calendar and look at whatever our first snow day was, and based on the timing, it would be the day that's the snow day. So that's another possibility as well. just wanted to get some discussion and see what some of your initial thoughts were. And in this scenario, there would be 12 in-service days next year instead of 10. We would save the cost of busing, we would save the cost of food services on those days, which was a reason not to put in 4 half-days, for instance, bring students in for a half-day, send them home. It's nice sometimes to get that extra reoccurring professional development time and have 4 afternoons, but you're incurring costs anyway, so it makes, I think, sense just to look at 2 full days.
So I think it looks good to me. I think people would appreciate having that break, not the break, but to end on June 8th, you know, instead of going into the next week. Well, you would go into the next week if you had the snow makeup days. But as far as like the built-in day idea, that, to me, that's the way we had it when we lived down in Virginia and Maryland. It seemed more logical to me. That's the way they would do it down there. That until you had, they actually had 5 days. Until you went to a 6th day off for snow or whatever, you didn't make up any snow days. And it just seems so much easier to understand. I have people all the time, and even myself, looking at the calendar and going, well, wait, how do we do it? Is this going to be a school day? When's the last day of school? So I would, you know, if you want to do the built-in day idea, that could be good. But I like this. There's a good, the way that you've distributed the days around, I think, looks good. And we've already discussed how important the professional development days are for a lot of the new programs that we want to have the teachers, the things that we've invested in, to have them get the training that they need, so.
The way this calendar would be laid out is there would be extra days in the 3rd marking period. So they're not evenly distributed, 45 days, 45 days. That way, we're making the days meaningful prior to testing, prior to sitting there in the classroom in June.
Yeah.
So in this calendar, there would be 45 days in marking period 1, there would be 44 in marking period 2, and then we jump to 48 in marking period 3 because we lose instructional time because of the testing environment. And then at the end of the year, it would be back to about 44 days. So that helps, I think, to, when you look at the counter side of this is, that, you know, it's tough to ever pull instructional days because we want to salvage every minute we can, and we always hate to lose instructional time, but I think the key is where are we losing it from. So in this scenario, we'd be losing it from June, not losing it from during any of the other school months.
No, and I think that makes sense. And I've always been a big believer in just being more efficient and using your time wisely rather than saying, well, we're going to have these, we'll go more days theoretically to, you know, provide more instruction. But what you're saying, I agree with, that if you choose wisely and put the in-service days in places where you're not going to lose as much with instruction, that makes sense to me. And I just lost the other thing I was going to say. Oh, I had something else I was going to say, but I can't remember what it is now. I mean, I looked at this last year. We came, when we got onto the board last year, it was after you'd already had the discussions. So, and I think I remember, you know, I think I brought up last year how I looked at I looked at other school districts or down in, you know, again, Maryland and Virginia, they run by county. And I looked at those school systems, and they go fewer days than we do. And they're some of the best school systems in the country, like Fairfax County, Montgomery County, Maryland. And so I did some looking around, and it certainly can be done to deliver a good quality education in fewer days. So, I mean, to me, and I think parents would be appreciative to having the extra time with the way life is.
Any other thoughts?
I just want to take the time to try and digest it a little bit before I actually start hitting you with a lot of questions, Dr. Price.
Yeah, I mean, my only concern is, right, if we're concerned about student performance and test scores, we need to be careful, you know, just think carefully about how many days we have of instruction, but, you know, I know, you said that if we have the right professional development that can make the teachers more effective. I do know too, sometimes students and teachers just having, you know, a short break sometimes make people more effective.
Yeah.
Right, when they
Yeah.
come back.
For sure.
So, and I do know, you know, I used to teach at Quakertown, and we I believe we had 184 when I was there, and I know they've reduced the days, but that, we didn't make up the snow days in the beginning, and then everyone was happy about a snow day, instead of saying, what are we gonna lose now? Because that's hard, I do think, so I would be fine with the first snow, you know, if we have 181 days, but if we have the first one or two, whatever we have built in, be the snow makeup days, I think it's less stressful for families and teachers, because sometimes people already have plans, and then you say, oh, well, now it's a snow makeup day, and it's,
And there go your plans.
right.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, it's hard, that can be stressful, and then certain students, then they're missing school, so.
Right.
And then certain kids can be disadvantaged by that, so, I think.
You know, as the Act 48 committee last year, part of what we did about mid-year was look at all the schools in the surrounding counties and how many total staff days, student days they had, how many Act 80 days they had that counted, you know, where it looked like the kids were in session, but really it was an Act 80 day, so when the school got credit for it, and try to get an idea of higher performing schools versus some of the middle of the road performing schools and so forth. And there really isn't a great correlation between number of days, because you're talking, you know, a difference of 1 to 4 days. A pattern of, is it higher performing because you have 3 or 4 extra days? It's really the other things that they do. So as Gina mentioned tonight, you know, one of the reasons we asked Sam over at Souderton about things that he sees as far as programs that are helping them to be successful. The question came up because I had talked to the high school team about, as we pursued schedule options for the high school, is I said, you know, there's no good research out there on a block schedule or traditional schedule or hybrid schedule being linked to higher test scores. And I said, you know, I was going to pursue that as a dissertation idea, and couldn't do it because there's no way to isolate all the other variables to prove it's the schedule. So there's got to be something else those schools are doing that are making them high-performing schools. So Link Crew was one example. But and of course, having good staff members, good teachers. That's no matter what schedule you're in, no matter what you're doing, no matter how many days you're there, without that piece, forget it. So I think that's the number one piece. But no correlation that I could find as we look at schools across counties to say that 1 to 3 days is making a difference in performance. It's how you use the days you're in session. It truly is.
I agree with what you're saying there, and I think, you know, also the one item that you did point out there is with that first week of school. You know, kids come in, they're starting in August. So if you can make it a 4-day week, you know, that's gonna help, I think, there, and for also with the staff. But I do agree. I think, you know, when you're talking 2 days, it's not a matter of what they're getting out of sitting in a classroom. It's a matter of what, you know, how you're using that time, not just time spent in a classroom, not just the fact of putting in 2 more days there and being there physically. It's, you know, how well you're using that time that you have them there. And I think that's the difference.
At the first week, we always did have just 4 days, and this year was
It's 5.
we had 5.
Was
But
this really first?
yeah, this year was the first year we had 5 days that week, because the past few years we've started before
Yeah.
Labor Day. It's only been a 4-day week, so.
I know, I'm always, I'm sorry, I thought you.
No, go ahead.
So I've heard different things. In my mind, I thought the same thing that Suzette just said, like, you know, going 5 days in the first week is kind of tough, especially maybe on the little ones, you know. for everybody, even for parents. I mean, going, 5 days in that first week. But I will say, I do know a couple of people who were like, well, it just doesn't make sense not to go 5 days in the first week. I'd rather just go the 5 days. But I mean, those people are rare. They're far outnumbered by the people who say, I would love to have that Friday off. So I think that
Comment? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much for coming.